morning, Outdoors family. Today is closing day. So excited. Our son, he has no idea. He thinks that we're going to an appointment. He figures he's going to a doctor's appointment. We didn't tell him any better. So this was on his Christmas list about getting a new house. So he's gonna take part in this process as well. Hopefully he enjoys it like us. So, it's just signing right now. But I want to see his reaction. Stay tuned. All right, Jason. So where we about to go?
I don't know. You didn't tell me.
Well, we got an appointment. What kind of appointment you think we got?
Doctor.
We don't have a doctor's appointment. You remember something that was on your Christmas list? Like the really big thing that was on your Christmas list? The most expensive, biggest thing on the Christmas list?
Laptop?
No. What do you need first before you can get the laptop, the computer?
House?
Yeah. So we going to sign the papers so that we can get started building on the house. How you feel about that?
Good, I don't have a doctor's appointment.
So we have arrived at the title company. How we feeling?
Good.
How we feeling?
Real good.
Real good. What about you?
Good.
That's all you got?
I think.
You gonna have a house, man.
Oh, okay.
I tell you the truth. Maybe when we actually start breaking ground. All right, y'all. We done. It's signed. Now all we got to do is pay for it.
I don't know who gonna do that.
What? Ridiculous. Hey, my Outdoors family. It is a new year. We're ready to walk into our purpose, getting this house built. So we've had a couple days since closing to just kind of let it just set on us. It's just a big relief, honestly. There's a whole lot of hurry up just to wait. So I think that was just the most stressful part. Definitely during this journey, we're gonna keep y'all involved so you can see the progress that we make and the decisions that we make. This time I just want to talk about just this process in general. And we got this land 2019, around 2019, and it was mainly woods. I think you guys can still hear me. The kids are riding four-wheelers, probably trying to show off. That's why they're riding behind me. But yeah, we bought this land around 2019, and it was nothing but woods. So we did a lot of handwork of like cutting trees down, pulling bush brushes up, and then we were finally able to get a excavator. And my husband, he knocked down all the trees that were on this. This was just basically like Pond Valley, nothing but trees. So he pretty much knocked those over. And we had a little help with cutting that stuff up. And we had like 3 massive piles out here that we could not burn because a lot of the stuff was still green. So we tried to burn, but a lot of the stuff, it just ended up decomposing. So now we have this, is what it's like now. And then once we're able to get the trees off, we actually had someone come in a dozer, and they had a root rake. And that way we can get all those roots from here, stumps, all that stuff. They helped get that out. And he actually kind of cut the hill down just a little bit. So it's kind of like a slow slope up into this, basically where the house is gonna be. And then all this was a process. It wasn't, okay, one day and we're done. You know, it took some finances. It took a lot of work. Most of it we done ourselves, so it kind of gives you a little bit more pride when you do stuff with your own hands. But we did have someone who, they had a mulcher to actually, like some of the stumps, they grinded some of that stuff up. Also in our, basically like our play area back out that way, where we ride four-wheelers and the side-by-side, we had some of that cleaned up. We had someone in the mulcher that helped with that, at least to thin some stuff out. As far as the loan process, that was the most stressful thing that I've experienced. And it wasn't anything particular, it was like the waiting is the stressful part. I know, was it maybe September, mid-September, we signed our contract with the builder. And then we were ready to rock and roll. We had a lender, and I knew better. We knew better, because this lender, actually the builder, was like, yeah, we work with them. But there was another lender that we had already talked to that I was comfortable with, but we were gonna go with the lender that the builder recommended because they work with them. It's like, okay, the process would probably be easier. And I should have known, because the first time I actually talked with the loan officer from there, he was very short with me. And that was my first sign. I did not heed. So we signed the contract mid-September, and then that was on a Friday. On the 19th of September, the lender actually, he sent me a message, confirmed receipt of everything. So it was like, okay, we good, we ready to go. The next 2 to 3 weeks were like pulling teeth to get information. And I submitted everything that I had to submit. And he wouldn't answer, for 1 week. Then he'll finally call and it's like, well, it's with the construction loan department. It's like, okay. So I just give him to next week to follow up. And then maybe, I think it was the third week, after I called again, he's like, I'm gonna have someone call you tomorrow. They're at the construction department, blah, 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 blah. But I've learned people lie. They just tell you what they think you want to hear so you can get off their back. So the construction department guy, he called, and we discussing and he was asking about the plan. I was like, well, we submitted all of that stuff, and we did that 3 weeks ago. It's like, okay, well, we'll take a look at it and run some numbers. So when they ran some numbers and we got the loan estimate back, the numbers were not numbering. And what actually happened was they top sheeted our contract and they didn't have the full numbers. And even with that, the price was insane. Just their fees. Insane. Didn't make sense. And it just made me feel some type of way, because it took 3 weeks for them to even look at our information after we submitted it and after they lied. And then when they finally looked at it, they didn't do their due diligence and only looked at the first sheet. So now we're looking at these exorbitant numbers based off incorrect numbers. And I felt like if we're having this type of issue with them not actually looking at the documents that we submit and the numbers, that they're not going to have any care or for us to feel confident when we actually, go through the process. So that day, once we realized that, we called up the actual initial lender that we talked with, and he was great. During the process before we even applied, I could call, ask questions, run through scenarios, very responsive. That was great. So that day, called him up and was like, hey, we were starting the process with somebody else. Not happy. I was like, I need to get these documents over to you. It's like, oh yeah, we can do this. But he was actually out of town. So I just went on and submitted everything, you know, tax papers, pay stubs, just all that stuff that's necessary. So he got back into town, and then it turns out that they were having some staffing issues because somebody had just went out on maternity leave. So this process was a little different from a traditional bank. It's like farm credit. So their process is a little different. It almost felt backwards to me because you read up on all this stuff that you think is supposed to happen, and then it's like, wait a minute. But once we got we got the credit approval from them, and then we went to the appraisal. This is where I started to get a little frustrated because the day we got the credit approval, and it was basically, okay, so now the next stage is going to be appraisal, title search. So I was like, okay, we about to rock and roll. Let 1 week go by. I was like, okay, that was a Thursday. It's like, give them a little time because they have to order it, third party, whatever. 1 week went by, so nothing. So text the lender. It's like, hey, just wanted to see what's the appraisal ordered. No response. Call, no response. Wasn't able to leave a voicemail, it was full. Sent the email, no response. It was 10 days before I heard from the lender again. And it was basically like, yeah, we're working with a third-party appraiser, so we're basically at their mercy, which is fine, but to be unresponsive for that amount of time was kind of crazy to me. And honestly, me and my husband, like, if we weren't already in that part where we hadn't got approved and all that, we probably would have bounced to somebody else. Because it's like, okay, I understand there's a process, but lack of communication, crazy. So maybe 2 days later, the appraisal guy, he called, and just so they can come by and take pictures. And that let me know that in actuality, they probably didn't order the appraisal until we actually made contact again. So a little perturbed about that. But then what then happened? When I asked about the appraisal, it's like, okay, so we're in this process. Has the title search been ordered? It's like, yeah. It's already been ordered. So all that's supposed to be done in conjunction, because in reality, you want the title search done before you actually even do all that to make sure there's no issue. So I think my son had a field trip, and they finally called. Appraiser had sent the information in. They just had to look over it. And then he was like, now I got to give the title search, the title company, so we can make sure. And I'm thinking like, oh, this was supposed to be done already. And I think that was on like December the 9th, because the day my son had a field trip. It was the 9th. So I'm thinking like, oh my goodness, here we go again. Think about this. This is September when we started this entire process, and nothing has been delayed because of anything that we've done. We weren't ever asked for additional documentation because we submitted everything when we applied. I mean, every single thing. So, was it the 9th? And then we had to pay the appraisal fee. I'm like, hey, you gonna send a link for me to pay? I mean, that took a whole day just so we could just pay the appraisal, because I'm like, this process has been this long. I'm not trying to do anything to delay it any further on our end. So we paid the appraisal, and then when did we? I think it was maybe that following week. We basically were like, are we gonna close before the year's out? That's all we want to know. And it's like, yeah, I think we're gonna make it. And they gave us a date. First was the 29th. And then it took the title company like forever still to get their final numbers so that they can send us the disclosure. And I'm like, all that was supposed to already have been done. But, you know, they tell you what you want to hear so you can get off their back for a couple of days. I understand holidays, busy time of the year, but don't lie to me, you know? And then, well, it was after that happened, because, you know, you have 3 days to review that loan disclosure before you can, closing disclosure before you can actually sign. So they got that to us a little late, so that pushed the date back to the 30th. And 30th got here, we signed. We took our son with us because we want him to be a part of the process. And I think it was on his Christmas list, the whole house thing, because we had been talking about it. And like, if you've seen previous videos, you know that we've been to Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, looking at houses, mobile homes, just everything. We've exhausted everything just to make sure we do what was right for us and our family and what made financial sense. So, and he went with us to a lot of those places just to, you know, get an idea. So we just wanted him to be a part of this journey. Like right now, I know he's happy, yay, but I don't think it's like where me and my husband are at this time, because it's not physical yet. So once they actually start breaking ground, I think he'll be even more excited. He did actually look at the plan. I was like, which one's my room? And we pointed out, so he got happy. So I'm really excited to actually film when they start breaking ground so he can see this process. So that part probably excites me just as much as being able to get this done. We've talked about this for a long time. We've done a lot of work. Baby could barely talk at one point when we first started this journey. So we're here. This is just the beginning. And honestly, it feels like a weight has been lifted off our shoulders, because like I said, it was a whole bunch of hurry up and wait. Like, what's next? Well, there's nothing next until they do what they have to do. And man, I'm just so thankful to God for just allowing us to see this point. Like I said, growing up, like, you wanted your own place, but sometimes I think we kind of sabotage ourselves with our tongue of like, well, maybe we can't afford this or we can't do that. And that's what me and my husband learned in this journey, the power of the tongue. Stop speaking all that negativity of what you can and what you cannot do. You know, just work, pray to God, and you just continue to build on things, and you can get those things. And it was just funny because like at every step, it was like, well, we're not going to go above this because we can't afford it. Well, we can't afford this. And in actuality, we could afford much more than what we were stating. So don't speak that negativity on yourself, because it's amazing what the tongue can do to your mind. You know, you convince yourself that you can't do things and you talk yourself. You ain't got to worry about nobody else. You convince yourself that you can't do it and you end up not doing it. You scare yourself away from things. So that's probably one of the big things I've learned. And another thing, I think I developed a little bit more patience during this process, because like I said, baby, this was stressful. Neck pain, jaw pain because I'm just sleep with my teeth like clenched because I'm just worried. There was nothing to be worried about because we had already set ourselves up. But you don't know until you do it. As I say, you don't know the answer to things until you ask a question. I mean, like I always tell my son, can't do nothing but tell you yes or no. But if you don't ever ask, you don't know. So just keep pressing if you have something that you want to do. Keep pressing and speak positively, think positively, but you also got to do the work. So we're gonna make sure that we bring y'all along on this journey. Right now we're still waiting on our builder. This is New Year's Day, so our builder will be back in town on Monday, and then we'll set up a pre-construction meeting, and then we'll be getting ready to build our dream home here. Just so excited for the process. Y'all stay tuned, stay rocking with us. Outdoors with the McCalls. Peace.